Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here, Keith.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because it's been about a year since we had our podcast interview, which I'll include a link to that here. But ultimately, there's been so much going on at Maven AGI over the past year. So we've got a lot to talk about. But before we get into all that, let's talk about Maven AGI and what the company does.
Maven is creating AI agents for customer experience. For most people, we start with customer support. The challenge that we're trying to solve, Keith, is that a lot of people have, these massive numbers of customers who are coming to them and saying, "I need help with using your product and getting value out of it." But for many companies, because every single interaction is expensive, the average is $40 to $60 per interaction. They're saying, how do I deflect as many of these interactions as possible so it doesn't cost me as much? At Maven, we're allowing people to be able to interact with AI agents who know all of the knowledge about the products that people are trying to get help with. They have context around historic interactions and they have the ability to be able to take actions. And so we're creating AI agents for customer experience that are answering over 93% of customer inquiries with no humans involved. That's pretty amazing.
What's a good example of a customer using your platform?
Yeah, we have some really great customers. I think, one that I really like is a company called ClickUp. I think they raised $675 million. And so they built a very complex product. And, they said, it's one app that allows people to do anything they want with it. And so, when we went and started chatting with them around how we could help them from a customer support perspective, they said, we're a really, tech heavy product. It's challenging to be able to support this. Our average sales rep or support rep has to go through 9 months of training in order to be able to use this product. And so we said, we think we're up for the challenge. Let's see how we can do it. And so they actually started working with us using just a co-pilot alone, Keith. And what that means is like you have a human agent who's sitting there, they're sitting there maybe using their Zendesk. And when the customer's questions come into them, we actually are just creating something on the right-hand side that says, here's the sentiment of the user, here's the question that they're asking, here's the answer to it. Click here and you're on to the next one. And so what they saw with just using that Copilot alone was a 30% improvement in terms of agent performance. Their agents were able to answer 30% more questions on a daily basis. And so, of course, what we've done is we've actually continued to expand beyond just Copilot with many of our customers. And we have some really cool customers, like the company called Invicti, actually here in Boston, which is a security company. Security is a tough one, right? There's so many nuances to it. We're answering over 97% of their customers' inquiries, where they're interacting with Maven through chat agents, through email, through a whole bunch of different mechanisms where customers want to be able to answer or ask questions of Invicti. So those are some of the ways that we're helping folks. And we have over 50 customers who are working with us today across the broad array of different areas. Tend to see a lot of people in the B2B space and fintech and a number of other areas who are using our product.
Well, when I first heard of what you and your co-founders were building, I was like, this is the perfect use case for a native AI company. And that's really been your journey. Like you are totally disrupting what used to be done.
I think, yeah, and that's the reason why you leave some of those legacy companies because you see the opportunity in front of us. And so I think, myself and my co-founders were fortunate to be in really great companies. I was at HubSpot, a lot of other market leaders in the CX space. My co-founders were at companies like Stripe and Google. But what we saw was that there was an opportunity for us to really change the way that people are interacting and engaging with their customers. We could do that in a very personalized manner that's bespoke to every single customer with full understanding of what are the products that they purchase? What is the context that makes the interactions relevant for them? What are the historic interactions? And then the ability to be able to move beyond just answering questions into being able to take actions on their behalf. And so a really good example of that would be a bank that we're working with. And they would have customers coming in and saying things like, where's my money? And of course, like if you're not logged in, you have no context for that, you couldn't possibly answer that question. But With Maven, they were able to say, okay, great. We know who you are. We know the products that you have access to. We know that you have a bank account and a checking account and a credit card with us. We can look at those historic interactions. We can identify, oh, you're probably talking about the deposit that you made 2 days ago. Your money is going to be available in another 2 days because that's how long it takes us to process a deposit. And so those are the types of things that create a delightful customer experience. In fact, what we're seeing with our customers is they're able to deliver a 95% plus CSAT score using Maven, which is pretty amazing.
Well, as I indicated in my intro, there's been a lot that has been happening at Maven AGI. So let's bring our audience up to speed, the new round of funding and anything else.
Yeah, Keith, we were really fortunate. I think that funding is the byproduct of having amazing customers. And so, I've had a number of people congratulate me on the latest funding, which we did a $50 million Series B, led by folks like Dell, participation from Schneider, Cisco, Lux, E14, M13, some really amazing investors. But I think the area of focus for us was great. That allows us to be able to make sure that we're bringing Maven to so many more people. And the nice thing about our Series B is that, we tried to really kind of think deeply about the use of different funding rounds as it pertained to where we were as a company. And so when you think about the life cycle of a startup, you start off and you're like, I have an idea. It might be, a couple of people and a dog, and they're trying to prove out that, hey, I have an idea and I can turn that into something that people are going to use, they're going to get value out of. And so, you usually, you're looking for product market fit. And so once you've gone in and you've proven out product market fit, hey, I'm solving a real problem and people are willing to pay me for it. The next thing that we believe your job is you need to get to distribution as fast as possible. In a space where you are the disruptor, your goal is to go knock on as many doors as possible. Now, the challenge is, Keith, is that for most companies, you're constantly kind of teetering on, I don't want to overextend myself because if the growth plans don't work out, I don't want to have to go and have a tough conversation. And so you're constantly, you're kind of growing at a steady state. And we said, how do we get to that massive distribution as fast as possible? Well, it turns out that there's some amazing partners out there that we were able to bring in as part of our last round of funding. And so really excited to lean into building out our partner ecosystem, and you'll be hearing more about that later this year.
Now, in terms of growing the team, like what are the plans as relates to hiring?
We're about 85 people right now, Keith. We have a really nice contingent of folks here in Boston, actually. And then, we have our field employees and some of our more senior engineers that are remote. So I think we've been hiring like crazy over the past couple of months. I think we've brought in about 60 people over the last 4 months. So lots of work for us to do to make sure that we're showing them where all the things are and how to get started.
So once someone joins the team, what's the culture like at Maven AGI?
I think it's a culture there's a lot of excitement in. It's one where when we started Maven, we actually wanted to be very intentional about the culture that we were creating. And so, our really the focus was how do we create a place where people can do their best work? And so, when you go into creating something with the positive mindset, you believe that everyone wants to be able to do great work. And the challenge for most people in being able to do the great work is a lot of times it's not enabled and there's not a culture of saying this is the place that we want to be in order to enable that. And so we want to be very intentional about creating that, Keith. And of course, culture is the byproduct of the intentionality as well as the people that you bring in. And so, we've tried to bring that to bear in every single hire that we make.
Now, top tier talent, regardless of market conditions, they always have different options available for them. So why is now the ideal time to join Maven AGI?
It's a great question, Keith. We're solving one of the most interesting problems using technology that's still being invented. And so, if you want to work on really interesting, challenging problems and continue to evolve the way that Gen AI is being deployed and being used, Maven's a great place to do that.
Well, if you are interested in exploring opportunities at Maven AGI, you need to go to their company page on VentureFizz, which has all their job listings there. Go to venturefizz.com/Maven AGI, and you'll see all their listings. Jonathan, thanks so much for taking the time to walk us through all the great details about the company.
Appreciate it, Keith. Great to see you again.